As the scene switches back to Fort Zelo, there is a very weird mistake the subs have made. They write Federal Republic of Germany. This is not only bullshit due to the fact that Zelo, as we explained in the last episode, is very far to the east and therefore lies within the territory of the GDR. It is also bullshit due to the fact that the very kanji themselves read the official Japanese designation for the German Democratic Republic. Doitsu Minshu Kyowakoku. And therefore, I don't know how this mistake happened.
One thing I was a bit confused about is that Katja finds a book and this is apparently in English. Now, why is it in English? I don't know. That's my problem. It should be in German or in Japanese, because this book is of course a plot device. It tells us what Schwarzesmarken is about and the beta invasion in Kashgar. And so I just trying to figure out, of course there were English books in East Germany, out of necessity anyway. But just why they choose English is kind of incorrect, because they don't do this for English viewers. Because all the text in the background was fitting with the setting and done in German. So why is this single book in English? I know it's a small detail, but it just confuses me why suddenly it would be. Like, if it's a plot device, it should be either in German or in Japanese, but what the hell do I know? Also, there's a short mention of the Friedrichstraße, which is a quite infamous street in Berlin. I use it quite often as it is a major subway station in general. A part of the Friedrichstraße was in East Germany and part of it was in West Germany. So in this time it was actually separated by a wall.
So the Stasi tests out its new toys, the MiG-27 Alligatori. It is kinda interesting that they have this nickname over here, because in real life a MiG-27 did not have such a nickname. Also, I wondered because it was described as the latest model. However, in real life, a MiG-27 was already introduced in 1975, so either it was delayed in the Muv-luv universe, or we simply have the delay for the availability of Soviet equipment to the East Germans accounted for. However, it is noteworthy that the alligator motif might be inspired by Gena the crocodile. That was a Soviet children's literature character, a fictional character, and it was made by the same author who also came up with Cheburashka. Now, therefore, we would actually have the connection to the model it surpassed, the MiG-23, if this connection would be stressed a bit by that. So maybe that was the whole idea behind it.
Now, the leader of that resistance group, Susie, actually the subs didn't quite get her name right, but I seriously couldn't get her last name. I don't know. I have Sapio because that's something she says, but I really don't know what her full name is. She was whispering it, so I even couldn't figure it out. So if you know it maybe from the visual novel, then please write it in the comments. It would interest me. But one thing the English subtitles did was make it Susie with Z, and that's not a thing. Usually the name is written with two S's in the as a name. But she says that she's a member of the resistance group Großer Bär. Now, Großer Bär means big bear in English. And it makes sense because both Berlins use a bear in their emblem. A bit different in the style, but in general, that's the emblem of Berlin, so it makes sense that she would be associated with it.
I believe the trucks we see at the very end of the episode to be the type Ural 375D. This is something I can just merely guess from what I've seen here, but they seem to fit the image pretty much. It could be a slightly different model, but overall I think they are from this line of military vehicles. As we meet the resistance fighters, you will note some sashes on their upper arms. Now, why do they have those? Well, in the military, such armbands are called brassards, and pretty much any military organization has them nowadays, and it's been a tradition for quite a while already. Usually they just indicate your affiliation and your rank. And why would resistance fighters actually emulate that? Well, the idea is quite simple if you think about it. In combat, when they actually go into action, they can identify one another and coordinate one another with that. Now, when they have to go underground again and blend in with normal society, they just take off the scarf of their upper arms and wrap it around their neck, for example, and suddenly they look like an ordinary citizen again, and the authorities are unable to pursue them anymore. So I guess that this is the idea, though I will admit that I have not really done much research into resistance fighters in the 20th century, so I might be wrong here, but this is an image in general that I have often seen with resistance groups depicted in several media and historical photographs. So I guess this is the idea behind all of it. Just correct me if I'm wrong or if there's actually more to it. I'd be interested to know.
Also, we get the real name of Katja Waldheim, and that is Ursula Strachwitz. Now, to be honest, Katja is a much cuter name compared. It's a usual name, and her mother is called Ernestine. Now, at that time, you could argue that name was still normal and usable, but nowadays, if you give your kid the name Ernestine, you want it to be bullied at school. It's really not a common name anymore, and it just sounds weird for a woman to have that name. Given her husband called her Tine, which is of course a much cuter form of Ernestine, but Ernest is much more a man's name, and even that name is hardly used today anymore. But some of these names I would rather hear than a lot of names that are used today, like Kevin or Jeremy. That these kind of names have become popular, and it's not really a nice trend. I would prefer some old names, but again, if you use these names, it's more likely you're getting bullied for it. One thing that a bit annoyed me is that people talking, Katja, she's so annoying, pure, perfect girl, whatever, shitty. Now, I agree, I don't really like her too, because she is kind of this naive little girl. But it always surprised me how people are completely forgetting how the Cold War worked, where extremes were used for both factions. So in that case, it makes really sense to use Katja as the symbol. Hey, look, she lived in both East and West Germany and helped the people. And look at this pure, innocent girl that couldn't be possibly wrong, which is quite a normal thing for the Cold War, I think. So I'm a bit confused, because that much knowledge about the Cold War everyone should have, so maybe I'm expecting too much from the people. Who knows? So that was it with this episode of Schwarzesmarken. So as usual, stay tuned for the next episode, and remember, I can say it, I'm German.